What up, IDS Mob? It's your boy, HarryWilmington here, back with another show. And today, we're going to be answering a question from a guy who's been dating a girl for about 3.5 months. And she recently went out on a girls' night. And while she was there, she pursued, danced with, and made out with a hot guy. And then later told him about it. And now he's unsure how to feel about it and what to do. And I thought this is a really interesting situation he's going through because it goes into the things of whether or not you want to forgive somebody and what red flags are, and should you continue to pursue something with somebody after they've really broken your trust in a horrible way. So let's go ahead and get into this guy's situation. So it's a long one. I'm going to stop at parts just to kind of give my 2 cents on things that are going on. So he says he's been seeing a girl for about 3.5 months, went exclusive with her a month ago. After a discussion where I very honestly stated that I wanted to slow our relationship down just a bit, she became insecure, and then on a night out with friends, got drunk, approached the guy, danced with him, made out, got his number, and even texted him afterward. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but I am very hesitant. So we're going to get more into exactly what went on, but I do want to say this. I do want to say that you have to be mindful of the words that you're saying when you're trying to express yourself or talk about the kind of feelings that you're having. So this girl did a lot of stuff wrong. We're getting to what she did wrong. But if he actually used the words, hey, I think we should slow this relationship down when trying to talk about what his needs were, I think that it is an example of words that you're saying them and thinking that when you're saying them, they mean one thing to you and they'll mean the same thing to her, but they were clearly interpreted differently, okay? Because anytime a woman, well, let me not be general, let me just say, oftentimes if a person hears, hey, let's slow this relationship down, that typically tends towards a negative thought pattern where they're thinking this person's starting to lose interest in me, okay? So be mindful of these words when you're saying them. There are different ways to say the same thought. Like instead of saying, let's slow this relationship down, you could have said something like, hey, so we'll get into what the reason is that he said that in the first place, but you could say, hey, why don't we, take our time and say, I really want to make sure that we're processing everything right. And I want to make sure that we're growing this at the right pace. And so, let's kind of I like the pace that we're at right now. Let's keep it where it is. And then as things get more progressive, we can accelerate things, okay? But using negative words like slow this down, that is really going to be taken as a good thing. But continuing, here we go. So he says, the discussion that I had with her that led her to feeling insecure came up when she invited me out to this night with her friends, and I politely declined. This very much sounds like an introverted guy, because introverted guys sometimes will be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. I need my time alone for whatever reason, but you have a good time. Anyway, he says, I told her that I wasn't yet comfortable meeting her friends. This was twofold. I feel kind of socially vulnerable lately as I've lost a lot of my social circle during COVID. So meeting about 8 new people was pretty intimidating, particularly if they were her friends. I did tell her I'd be more comfortable if it was in a smaller group and to give me some time to think about it. I'm not sure if I was being an a-hole here. I was just being honest. So the reality is the guy was not being an a-hole. He said what I imagine a lot of introverts would say, which was that going from knowing just you to now having to know 8 new personalities by your friends could be a lot. I think the part where he said that he wasn't comfortable meeting her friends, again, that's one of those things where she may take it as you don't want to meet anybody that she knows ever, but that's not really what you mean. So, because the second thing he said was, hey, could we meet in smaller groups? And so if I were in this situation and she said, hey, let's have a night out and my friends are going to be there, it'll be like 8 of my friends, so can you come out? I would probably say the same thing of something similar, but not the same. Like I would say something to the effect of like, that's a lot of people for me to get to know, and I do want to actually meet your friends, but maybe we could do it in a way where I meet them like 1 or 2 at a time, so I get to know them over time, and then once I've met all 8 people individually, then it'll be a lot easier for me to be able to be around all of them at the same time, but I do want to meet your friends. So far he's used the negative, we need to slow this relationship down, and then he's also said, and I don't want to meet your friends. And in both cases, he didn't quite meet it in that way, but this is why you as a guy have to be very mindful of how things are going to be interpreted when you say them, especially to women, because on average, women typically tend to read in things with more emotion than you may be trying to express it. But if you're not aware of that, then you're going to be saying stuff off the cuff thinking, well, if I just said this to a guy, they would understand what I'm saying. But she's not a guy. She's a woman that's going to interpret it in a different way. So you have to kind of know the emotional language that could possibly make her think of this situation in a negative light and the stuff that's going to make her look at it in a more positive light. And women are all about bonding. So you need to be using language that indicates to her that you actually are trying to get close and you're trying to bond with her. So you don't say, let's slow down the relationship. You say, hey, I want to keep it at this pace so we can grow to really get to love and care for each other and build that true bond. You don't say, I don't want to meet your friends. You say, hey, I want to meet your friends because they're important to you, but let's figure out a way to do that where maybe we can meet them one by one so I can become as close to them as you are. Those are better ways to phrase things and mean the same exact thing, all right? Continuing, he says, come Saturday morning, the night after she went out, during which I had gone to bed early, so she had texted me a photo of the bar, and I merely told her to have fun. I didn't really know the details. He says, I go over to her apartment to help her out with something. She seems odd, won't look me in the eye. She says she's hungover and claims she doesn't remember a lot of last night. So already we know that she's lying. He says, I have a strong intuition that something is up. I ask her about it. She says she's just insecure about being hungover and about not presenting well for me when I show up to her. This is a lot of gibberish that she's trying to throw him off, but he's sticking to it. He's knowing that something's up. Good for this guy for having the radar. He said he was there to help her assemble a new bed. And then he says, I already know she's lying. I asked her multiple times, is something wrong? Is there something wrong? She insists that there isn't. So I say, okay. She goes to take a shower. While she's in the shower, I get a text from a friend who was at the same bar the other night. He says he thinks he saw my girlfriend there the other night and she was dancing and making out with some guy. I asked him which bar. It is indeed the same bar. He's never met her, but I've shown him photos of her and he overheard her name. I find my mind racing. So at this point, now he knows that this girl that he's been dating is lying to him and is out there making out with other people, hitting on other dudes when he is not around. Now, I'm going to step aside for a minute, okay? There is a part of the manosphere and of the quote-unquote, Crimson Capsule community that will have this thing where they say, if you're dating a woman, do not let her go on girls' nights out. And the reasons that you don't do that is for this very situation right here, because when she's out with her girlfriends will convince her to do whatever, including, hit on other guys, do stuff under the table and not tell you about it. And I was actually privy to this once. I was an Uber driver back in the day. And I remember I picked up a woman one time coming home from a club and she's on the phone. Well, no, sorry, back that up. She was, I picked her up from a guy's house. Okay. And then I pick her up at like 3 a.m. And as I'm taking her back to her place, she calls up somebody and it's her husband. And she's like, oh, hey, husband. Oh, yeah, me and my friend just finished at the club. And so it's kind of late. I just fell asleep on my girlfriend's couch and now I'm coming back home, yada, yada, yada. And I'm in the front hearing this and this actual conversation of like, oh, snap. She told her dude she was going out with the girlfriends, and she did, but she met her dude at the club. They made out. They went back to his place. They hooked up, and now she's lying to her husband about hanging with the girlfriends all night as if the hookup itself never happened, okay? So it is not to say that this stuff does not happen, okay? But here's the reality situation is that you cannot control what a woman is going to do. And so you could say till the cows come home, hey, I don't want you to ever go out with your woman friends and I don't want you to do any girls' nights out and yada, yada, yada. And I'm going to leave you if you do this and that. But you have plenty of women out there that go to girls' nights out all the time and don't do anything ever with guys. Just like you have women that never go to women's nights out and still somehow manage to find dudes to cheat on with their husband or boyfriend or whatever, okay? So I say this to say, don't think that you trying to prevent your woman from doing a woman's night out is going to stop her from cheating. And also don't think that just because she goes on a woman's night out that she is cheating, okay? Because those things aren't always parallel congruent to each other, okay? I just wanted to point that out. Like those things do happen, but your job as a guy, you show up the best you can. If you happen to find out that she's doing some stuff like this, then that's when you can say, okay, well, I got to make a decision. But don't be in fear of that happening, okay? Even though the story I'm telling, clearly this is what happened, but don't be in fear of that. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but just be mindful that if it does happen, you got to make the moves you got to make that are going to make you most comfortable in that situation, whether it's getting rid of her or whether it's talking through it with her or whatever, okay? Continuing, he says, she comes out of the shower and I sit her down and I ask her again, what's going on? She deflects and denies in ways that are very atypical. And he says, and this is why I know she's lying. She's acting very out of sorts. Plus, again, his best friend just told him what was going on. And I finally tell her that if she doesn't tell me the truth, I'm walking out the door. She says, I'm not hiding anything. I start to walk out. She stops me and finally admits to what happened. My God, it was like pulling teeth to get her to finally admit the thing that she did. All right? Even with all the evidence, still wouldn't, anyway. So he says, I don't know all the details yet, but I told her I needed a day to think. So he says, this is going to be a long post. So fast forward to last night when we finally sit down and discuss. She claims, okay, so here we are. So he says, she claims she felt insecure about our previous conversation about me not wanting to meet her friends and wanting to slow the relationship down a bit. See, again, it's not really a good excuse, but that slow down a bit part came back to bite him in the butt later. Women do not want to hear that you're trying to slow down a relationship. Continuing, he says, I told her just because I wanted to slow it down didn't mean I wasn't excited. But again, she took it like that. So be mindful, guys, you got to be mindful of just because you say a thing doesn't mean that's how they're taking it. And this is one of those examples. He says, I was still showing up for her. I was committing. I was just trying to operate at my comfort level. She says she went out to, quote, feel some sense of control. That is a confusing phrase. And sometimes, guys, when you're having these conversations, the other person will throw out phrases that will make you think they should be about something, but they're really not. But they're meant to sound like something in an attempt to have you be empathetic to what they were going through when the situation went down. Even though in this case, the guy did nothing wrong. Like, yes, we could fault him for saying words that may sound negative, but he didn't actually do any actions that were wrong other than trying to express himself the best way he knew how to in the moment. Continuing, he says, she owned the mistake she made. Good for her. She showed me text and conversations she had with her friends who were not cool with what she did. Good for them. She claims she has never cheated before, that this is a one-off thing. There were a lot of tears. So this is the thing, guys, because it's not that I don't believe that she genuinely felt bad about the situation, even though she lied to him and whatever. But women cry easier, more easily than guys do. And oftentimes, it can also be a tactic as a means to be able to get us to now feel sympathetic to them. Because women know that dudes don't like when women cry. It's a thing that hits at us to where we suddenly get into that mode of we want to help them out and we feel bad for them and we want to do anything we can to make them stop crying, even if it means saying stuff we don't mean, like, oh, babe, that's okay, or oh, don't cry, this isn't really a big deal, this and that. And so you have to decide on which moments in which a woman's crying whereby it's warranted and you need to actually feel bad for what you're doing and what you're saying in the situation, or times where she's going to be crying. And in spite of her crying, you still got to be like, well, I know she's feeling something emotional because I'm confronting her about this thing, but I got to be steadfast in the fact that I was treated wrong in the situation, and I cannot let her tears persuade me to think otherwise or to make it suddenly feel like my point's not valid, okay? Just recognize that's going to be a thing. It's going to be very hard the first few times for you new guys that are getting to relationships for the first time. The first few times you have a fight with your woman where she ends up crying and having tears, your first instinct is going to be, oh my God, I gotta fix this to make her feel better. But really examine what you're talking about and the situation at hand and see if it warrants that, or see if you can continue to talk about the situation in spite of her tears and get to the root of what's really going on to try to figure out what the problem is and if it can be fixed. Continuing, he says she had made me dinner, which I didn't eat. I just wanted to talk. I was ready to break up with her. She says I'm a huge blind spot for her because she's never felt this way about someone and she's scared. That's what I said to her about wanting to take it. That's why what I said about wanting to take it slow made her feel like I was just some girl she was seeing. So again, this is one of those situations where just because she interpreted it like that does not give her the right to then go out and do what she did. So if she was feeling that when he said, I want to take it slow, it made her feel like some girl he was just seeing. Well, for one, they had already established that they were boyfriend and girlfriend. So at this point, that's a null and valid point. But again, if she felt that in the moment, she could have verbally expressed that to him when he said, hey, let's slow this down. A simple, so does this mean I'm just some other girl you're seeing? He could have clarified, no, it's not that at all. You're the only woman that I'm seeing, and I think very highly of you, and I want to make sure that our feelings are going at the right pace, so it goes from like what we're feeling now to an even stronger bond in the future. So that's why I want to slow it down now, okay? But that didn't happen. So we're looking at a woman who, when she heard something that she didn't like, her reaction was to get insecure and then go out with her girlfriends and then go of her own accord, go up to a dude, hit on dude, dance with dude, kiss dude, give dude her number that she gave him. He didn't ask for it. She gave it to him. That's her reaction when she's feeling insecure. This does not necessarily bode well for a long-term relationship, but we'll continue. So he says, I am very unclear on how to feel. I see her profound remorse. However, I see her inability to communicate with me and process her emotions without acting out or being selfish as a huge red flag. I also think that even when I had an idea of what was going on, or nearly knew, and gave her multiple chances to come clean, she didn't take it, not until I was essentially out the door. I see my error in not reassuring her more that when I told her I wanted to take it slower, it was only because I was trying to keep the relationship healthy and grow it at a comfortable pace. So you should have just said all of that part and not the let's move this a lot slower thing. That I was committed and that I wasn't going anywhere. This is a new relationship, but I'm trying to date with intention these days. I really want a serious relationship. I thought she was wise, well-spoken, emotionally intelligent, and personally responsible. Everything else she said and shown me has suggested that she is, but this throws a huge wrench into the spokes. Any advice appreciated. This is getting long, so if anything is unclear, I'm happy to clarify. I sincerely thank you. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the reality of the situation. So I used to be the guy that would tell you guys, if something like this happens, the first moment that it happens, these huge red flags where she's already showing you that she's stepping out on you, then you need to be out the door. Just don't pass go. She's already shown the true colors. It is what it is, okay? And as I've gotten older and I've experienced more in my dating life, and in terms of women that I've dated that have, done certain things that I've seen as red flags, and even myself, me being a person that has done things at times with women that I could see for them would be red flags, what I've come to understand is this, is that ultimately you have to decide for yourself what things you're going to be able to tolerate and what things you're going to be able to realistically forgive in relationships, okay? So for example, this guy right here, right? This woman, 3.5 months into dating and only really a month being boyfriend or girlfriend, they have a conversation, she gets insecure, she steps out and does this thing, okay? Now, for some guys, this could be very much a deal breaker. This is the end of it, okay? She stepped out, she cheated, yada, yada, yada. There are people who are married in long-term relationships, like 30, 40 years, where in the course of that marriage, there was an infidelity, somebody cheated and stepped out, and they had the decision to stay and keep the marriage intact or to leave. And some of those marriages broke apart and they got divorced and it was a wrap. And then there have been other marriages who said, you know what? The cheating happened and it hurt my feelings, but this is really part of a bigger problem that we were having in our relationship, whether it was, the husband wasn't paying enough attention, or maybe the wife wasn't doing the things that she used to do. And so maybe if we fix those issues, then the stepping out will no longer be a situation, and this really will have been just a one-time thing that happens. And those people go to counseling and they fix the thing, and then they're able to, have a great marriage for the rest from here on out, So those things do happen, but it really boils down to what are you able to realistically handle? So if this is a situation where, 3 months in this happens and, he's able to forgive her, they're able to maybe go to counseling and talk about it and get to the root of what her insecurities are and why this happened. And they're really able to get an understanding of where this comes from. And she, assures him that she's not going to do it again. And she's going to work hard to prove to him how much she cares for him or whatever, to where he can actually forgive her and they move on. Then I would say, if that's something you think you can do, then consider going that route. Now, that said, if you feel as though this is an incident where 5 or 10 years from now, you're still going to be having doubts about her. You're still going to be nervous every time she wants to go out with friends, or anytime she goes out of town and says, I'm going to go to this bar real quick to get a drink, and it's going to just drive you crazy, and you're going to be constantly bringing up in fights, well, you did this is just like when you did that thing, or I can't trust you because remember when you went and stepped out on me and yada, yada, yada. If you think that you're going to be the kind of guy that does that as your reaction to this, and you're never going to really truly be able to forget about it, and you're going to constantly bring it up, and you really just have this feeling that you can never trust her anymore, then I would say it's probably in your best interest to not continue seeing this woman. Now, again, the decision is ultimately yours because you could go the way. You could be a guy that's able to forgive, legitimately go through, talks with her and counseling and be able to forget about it and not have it stay in the back of your head. And if you can do that, more power to you. And I'd say you may want to consider working it out. That said, this is really early on for this to be happening. Like, I could see how if you guys had 7 years in and then you would had 2 or 3 years of you not being the kind of guy that she once thought that you were, or that, she was starting to feel less attracted to you, and then this kind of thing happened, then I could see where it would be a situation where it's like, okay, this is 7 years out. We've had a good 7-year run so far, and now this thing's happening. So hopefully we can nip this in the bud so that way we can continue on having another great 27 years together. 3 months in, this is really, really, really a bad sign. So you have to really be strong and really think that this woman is ultimately worth it, that you can't find any other woman out there that's not going to do this stuff so early on, and that you have faith that she's going to be able to actually work on her communication style to where she can actually talk to you about what she's feeling versus going out and acting it out by hooking up with another guy, okay? Ultimately, the decision's up to you. So I can't, as a 40-year-old guy now, I can't say you should just completely get rid of this person, or yada, yada. Like I said, I've at times been the person that has done the thing that produced red flags for the other person. And I know in those moments, on my own accord, I felt like, oh my God, I feel so horrible. I would never want to do this thing to this person again because I know that this is a horrible thing and it makes me feel bad. It makes them feel bad. It doesn't make either of us look good. And so the person you're dealing with in a situation, she might feel the same way. She might feel so stricken with pain and feel so bad about it that she may never want to do this again. She may never want to go out by herself. She may never want to even talk to another guy without you knowing about it, even in a friendship capacity, okay? And so if she seems like that kind of person, then that might be a person you can work with on trying to make that work. But if it feels like she might try to go out again, or if you start considering, if you continue to date her and then she's saying things like, well, I want to go out again by myself and I don't understand why you can't trust me and yada, 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 as if she didn't already break that trust, then I would say it's not worth it. So it's up to you, figure it out. Hopefully, though, this gives you some ideas and things to consider and think about before making that decision. For the rest of you guys, if you want help on what to do in these kind of situations or how to figure out your own dating scenario that's going on right now that you can't figure out, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and sign up for the one-on-one coaching. Also go there to check out my various ebooks, audiobooks, and programs, all designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Also, if you want to support the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/HarryWilmington, or you can send a monetary thank you by going to introvertdatingsuccess.com, clicking on the tip jar tab, and leaving a monetary thank you. That's all I got for now. I'm Harry Wilmington, and I'll catch you guys on the next show. I'm out. Peace.